Traffic is heavy central to Kedzie and Ashland to the Ryan. It's 32 minutes from 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Inbound Ryan, 20 minutes 95th to downtown. Delays begin at the Stevenson. I-57, 16 minutes, I-80 to the merge. Bishop Ford, 14, with congestion from Cottage Grove to the Ryan. The northbound tri-state is tight at the Eisenhower. That's traffic. I'm Chip Talamonte. On AM 560, The Answer.
More of Chicago's Morning Answer show comes your way next. Now your official Chicagoland weather forecast. Mostly sunny, very pleasant today, high 78 degrees. Clouds roll in overnight, will go down to 62. Then tomorrow, another nice day on tap with partial sunshine. High temperature, pretty manageable, 80 degrees. It's currently 60 degrees. Your next news update in 30 minutes. Continuous coverage of the latest news, traffic, and weather at 560theanswer.com. I'm Elisa Z. Now more of Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan, and in for Amy J. this morning is Scott the Cow Guy Shalady, Fox Business regular.
Good morning.
And Scott, you were out of town when all this went down over the last week, right? Were you back?
I was flitting about. No, I wasn't here.
Flitting about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Flitting about.
And all of this I'm referring to is John Kass, a Chicago Tribune columnist, being targeted for professional elimination by the Jacobin mob. That presents itself in the form of the Chicago Tribune Guild, which manufactured charges of anti-Semitism against him for a column he wrote about George Soros's contributions to prosecutors around the country, including Kim Foxx, who have adopted a position of non-prosecution for what they term are minor crimes and have made cities arguably less safe because of their cultural disposition to non-prosecution of crime.
Arguably less safe. No.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I guess you could argue that this is a sensible public policy. It's not a particularly compelling argument based on the fact that murders are up 24% year over year in the country, and it's being driven by big cities where you have Marxist mayors and non-prosecuting attorneys. But okay, you want to make the
case. Do they have
case.
one stat in their favor?
I'm not sure of what it is. I mean, I know de Blasio in New York was celebrating the fact they have the lowest jail population since World War II. Meanwhile, shootings and murders were up 30% and 40%.
They just let them all out. That's why.
I mean, it's just remarkable. But anyway, what Kass recounted in his column, for everybody's memory, was essentially incontrovertible facts that were reported to the FEC, contributions to campaigns from PACs and whatnot, that were reported by the Marxist brethren of the Chicago Tribune Guild and outlets like Politico. Not in controversy, but when you're looking for a way to tear somebody down, you take whatever opportunity you can, particularly if you're unbounded by facts. And that's the approach that the Chicago Tribune Guild took. And, of course, they get cover with more smearing in lieu of argument on the merits from George Soros's kid, Alexander Soros. His kid, how old is he, 90? George Soros writing at NBC News, NBCnews.com, suborning this column, vile allegations of anti-Semitism. Not confined to the margins of social media. Just last week, John Kass, a prominent conservative columnist for the Chicago Tribune, claimed my father was somehow responsible for the unrest in Chicago and other cities because of his support for a liberal approach to criminal justice, one that Kass alleged has allowed felons out on the streets and created an environment that feeds the protests. Well, it's not an allegation that it's allowed felons on the street. The average number of arrests for a person arrested in Chicago for committing a shooting or a murder is 12. So it's not an allegation that felons are being allowed on the streets.
They're all on a first-name basis when they get there, right?
It's a fact.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, he didn't allege that George Soros was responsible. He alleged something that is, again, incontrovertible, that George Soros is supporting financially prosecutors who take this approach and produce the results that are being produced in Chicago. That's what he actually alleged. But he goes on, does Alexander Soros, to say, blaming Jews for mass civil rights movements. Is that what we have? Is a textbook white supremacy tactic that's been around for longer than anyone reading this article has been alive. The logic is simple. Those who promote these lies want you to believe that black and brown people are not smart or strategic enough to organize such actions themselves, so Jews must be pulling the strings. That is such a line of bull jive. It's all specious. It is really despicable, actually, the disregard for the truth or anything resembling good faith in disagreement. But that's the nature of the Jacobin mob, isn't it?
Oh, they hurt his feelings.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the aforesaid John Kass, his first interview since this all broke last week. And by the way, the Chicago Tribune moving him from his page 2 position, the editor-in-chief saying that was to improve the transparency of the Tribune news product. Okay. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Scott.
How are things? I've seen some action on social media where after manufacturing this allegation against you for the Soros column, they're now going back and rereading your previous columns to see if they can manufacture some more.
Are they? I'm not paying attention to what they're doing after they defamed me as a religious bigot. And most likely for not agreeing with them politically. I really don't follow it anymore.
Were you surprised by this, or were you just surprised that?
I was surprised.
You were surprised.
These people know me. Mm-hmm. They know me. I've worked with them. They're colleagues. I think some of them are good reporters. This is happening in newsrooms all across the country. It's not just me. But when it happens to you, and your rules for radicals, number 13, you isolate the individual, cut off support networks, etc. Mm-hmm. Individuals are softer than institutions. Mm-hmm. That's what we're seeing. And you, Dan Proft, in the Morning Answer, were the first to support me. And that's why I'm here now. You and Charlie Lipson, many others, the Britt Hume, many others writing about this, realizing that it's not just me. It's happening all over the country, which is why I write about, and I'm going to continue using the phrase, to encourage the others. I want to encourage people to stand up. You've said it many times. Stand up and talk. Speak. It's your country. I don't care whether you go, how you vote, whether you go for Trump or Joe Biden, whose favorite flavor now is Banana Republic. I wrote that in this morning's column. I really don't care. The American tradition is one of speaking your mind. And, but personally, it hurt very much. It hurt very much, especially since people who know me should know that when Louis Farrakhan makes his anti-Semitic remarks to others, I stood up and ripped on him while the left was silent. And when people forget that kind of stuff or ignore it and then come after me personally and paint me as a bigot, even though the Washington Post, the New York Times, Huffington Post, even the Sun-Times and many other organizations had written the same stuff. I did not mention his heritage or his ethnicity or his religion. I really don't care about that kind of stuff. You know that.
I know.
I don't care about, what does Dan Proft say? I don't care about non-behavioral characteristics. Mm-hmm. I care about what you do is who you are, not, how you're born.
Well, and the column, any fair-minded read of the column, it is about public policy in the space of criminal justice and law and order and peace on the streets. That was what the column was about. It wasn't really even about Soros. That's what's so ridiculous about it. I wonder if you're getting what kind of reaction you're getting among your colleagues at the Tribune. Is there anybody rallying to your defense, even privately?
There are some people who, reporters who reached out to me and said that what was done to me was unfair and wrong. And of course, Kristen McQuarrie, who's my supervisor, has been in my corner. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that very much because, it's tough when you're isolated in that kind of environment. But you know what really bothers me, because I still love the institution of the Chicago Tribune. I still think it's important. And what bothers me is, from a journalistic perspective, is if you're going to condemn someone or write anything about anything, there's a tradition that we call, you check the clips. You go back and you research a little bit and find out who said what about that thing you're writing about. And I was a copy boy years ago, 35 years ago, running copy, and the morgue would send clips to reporters in a pneumatic tube. I would run and get it out of when it came up from the morgue, run to the reporters. They'd look over the clips and see what had been said. And the fact that their ideology, and I'm speaking here of the executive board of the Guild, not the entire paper, but their ideology obviated journalistic practice is bad, because they say they love the newspaper, but they demean the practice of journalism before the eyes of all the readers by doing something like this and not checking the clips, which is what, any leg man that I had, I said, did you check the clips on this? And they didn't. Let's put it this way, Dan, I would not be happy.
Yeah,
with that person.
Well, also let's be honest. Was there really a need to check the clips? Like, you've just arrived on the scene. Who is this John Kass people are speaking of? You've been the page two columnist there for more than 2 decades. They know who you are. They know what you write. Conservative columnist. That's the problem. Conservative columnist.
Yep.
And this was just, for some reason, somebody thought it was a good idea. This is our opportunity to pounce. But they didn't need to check the clips because they're not interested in the facts. They're interested in looking for angles in to take you out, aren't they?
Well, that's what it seems like to a fair-minded, reasonable person. If you apply the reasonable man test, maybe they would agree with that.
Well, that's because they're not reasonable. It's a sad day when those people that may or may not be supporting you can do it publicly or not, or have to call you on burner phones from now on, just so that they're. I don't know, but from my, I say I'm the self-appointed leader of the Common Sensocrats. You told the truth, you hurt some feelings, and you got canceled. That's the bottom line, and a large part of what they said is true. It's also because it was a conservative truth. So those things are a double negative now, and it's a sorry state. But I would say this: I think you're right. There are other people now that have been standing up. We've seen some defections from other newspapers, and we've seen some people stand instead of kneel for the anthem too. Slowly but surely, I think there is a little bit of a movement of, hey, enough is enough.
I think that most people who still remember what America is don't want to. I kneel before God. That's it.
100%.
I'm not going to kneel. I'm not going to kneel before a mob and grovel and wring my hands and beg forgiveness. You've seen what happens to people who do that.
Mm-hmm.
After they're broken and 2 + 2 = 5, and the rat cage is pulled from their head, they're done. And I haven't been canceled. I'm still writing in the Chicago Tribune, and thousands of people have been writing me and the editors, and they're upset about everything, and they're making their views known.
Oh,
and I appreciate that, especially from all the listeners of this station, of the Morning Answer, and Dan's listeners, because when you're alone and getting beat up for something you didn't do, being accused of religious bigotry, just a few weeks ago, I did a piece on Cheryl and Bruce Leone. They're Orthodox Jews, and they had, their children came home during COVID, and they were stuck there. All the children, all the grandchildren in a little house, and it was a loving, beautiful Passover. I mean, does a religious bigot write that column? Do you check the damn clips? It's just amazing.
Well, hopefully this whole thing emboldens you, really. I mean, hopefully you can take a lot from it, because I know how good you are, and I've been around the world, and I read a lot myself, and I think if you can take anything from it, take it from the fact that this is an emboldening moment, because you are good.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, and to echo Scott's sentiments, you've already proven it's an emboldening moment, because the column you wrote after this occurred included some of the most powerful and moving language that I think you've written in your life. As somebody who's read you for most of those 2 decades, you've been the Page 2 columnist. The most important thing we leave is our name. We leave that to our children, and I will not soil my name by groveling to anyone in this or any other newsroom. That is a wonderful example to set for all those kids in J schools around the country who think they're going to go off to do something courageous and important. Well, they're not going to go off to do something courageous and important if they don't adopt that as their personal credo. I'll tell you that.
And thanks, Dan and Scott. And you know what? Beyond what happens to me, it's that the American people, I hope, have to stand up. It's not about whether you vote for Trump or not. It's about speaking your mind as an American and not being afraid. You just had a segment on earlier about people who are afraid to tell, pollsters where they go and what they believe. I understand that. That's a Chicago tradition. That's been, people have been afraid to talk to pollsters in Chicago for almost a century now. But people have to stand up. They have to realize that they have to encourage the others, encourage your neighbors, encourage your friends, be an example. Not John Kass as the example. I'm not wearing some kind of cape. I'm not a superhero. I'm just a guy sitting on the porch of a 3-flat in Chicago talking to you. But I think that people have to stand up and realize by doing so, we encourage the others. And someday, Dan, I'll get into all that, where that phrase comes from, Voltaire and all that stuff you love, entomology and going, which one's the insect, which one's the word? I forget.
We'll do 4 hours on Voltaire next time you guest host.
But to your point, John, a great debate. It makes both sides stronger, right? Just only hearing one side of the story turns it into from a debate to whatever, a mantra or some sort of. It's not good.
You know what does? You know what does for us, me though. Now that I'm a sort of a totem in some respects here. Other people are defending me. People who I'm not really crazy about, like Bill O'Reilly. I wrote a column condemning him for what he had done to women in a position of power, and wrote that if he was as old school as he said he was, someone would have kicked his ass on the curb in front of the neighborhood, for what he had done. But people are tweeting that John Kass is being defended by Bill O'Reilly, and that means John Kass is like Bill O'Reilly. Whatever the childish BS that goes on in Twitterverse, among these people, among these social justice warriors. And Kristen McCleary tweeted something like, before this goes off the rails and 20 more ill-informed comments about Kass and O'Reilly, why don't you read what Kass said about O'Reilly? And I'll never forget that, and I'll never forget what you guys at the WIND and Salem did for me, and I'll never forget what Charlie Lipson and other people did. Because when you're branded as a bigot, and now my name, whenever you Google my name, that'll come up. Who said, where do you go to get your reputation back?
Yeah, Ray Donovan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pisses me off, man.
Well, I think your reputation. What did John Wooden say? Your reputation is what other people think of you. Your character is who you are. I worry. Yeah, you don't have to worry about your character, so I wouldn't worry about what your reputation is and that despicable, thuggish, among that despicable, thuggish cadre. But I know it hurts.
You know what I think pissed them off was that I referred to social justice warriors. I think that really triggered them.
Triggered.
You know?
Yeah, sure. You should have issued a warning.
Such a big trigger.
You have to do the first column as a warning about the forthcoming column, a couple of days later to give them time to prepare for it. John,
you think if they saw my big fat head in a picture that people would be warned already?
John Kass, Chicago Tribune columnist. You'll always be page 2 to us here at the Morning Answer. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Scott.
See ya.
Thanks, Morning Answer.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables in a capsule, changing the world one life at a time.
I have a very busy podiatric practice, and usually I would find after lunchtime I kind of got a slump in terms of energy. But since I've been taking the Balance of Nature, I don't get that slump anymore. I've got a lot of energy throughout the whole day. With the Balance of Nature, I don't get colds, I don't get sick, and most importantly, I tell